You have complete control over your own life. Though, when I was hospitalized at McMaster Children's Hospital for the first time when I was 10, it definitely did not feel like I did. In 2015, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And at the time, I felt like it took everything away from me. I had to quit playing lacrosse, I couldn't go to school, and honestly, I could barely get off the couch at some points. I felt helpless in my own body and my own life. When I got diagnosed, I was really scared. I didn't know what this meant for me or what would happen in the future. All I knew was I wanted to get back to my version of normal instead of the many hospital appointments and tests. As a 10-year-old who was just newly diagnosed with a chronic health condition, I did my best to hide what I was going through from all of my friends. But you can only go to the dentist so many times before they start to question what's up. In 7th grade, I gave my first speech about my diagnosis to my peers, and the next year I attended camp in Nova Scotia for kids with Crohn's, and slowly I started to see a community around me, and I knew that I wasn't alone. I realized that my fear of people thinking about me differently was holding me back. I used to think that having Crohn's disease was a weakness I had, but in reality, it's the thing that's made me the strongest. It's made me stronger because I've had to learn how to be brave. If I was going to get poked and prodded at anyways, it was better if I went in with a positive mindset. It's also made me brave because I'm able to stand up here in front of you today and share my story. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ella, and by the end of my speech, I want you to leave thinking about how can weakness improve your life? Today, I started my speech by saying, you have complete control over your own life. And some of you probably thought to yourself, well, I don't have control over ... Whether that was if you win your next hockey game, how well you score on a test, if you get accepted to university, or even different leadership positions. What you don't have control over is external factors, but what you do have control over is your reactions, your habits, and how you choose to spend your time. Firstly, I want you to identify a weakness you perceive yourself to have, whether this be I'm bad at math, or I'm a slow runner, or I'm not strong enough. Now, I want you to identify an excuse that you make to yourself. I'm bad at math, but I will never use it in my future, so it's fine. Or I'm a slow runner, but it's okay because I'm really busy with school. Or I'm not strong enough, but I can't start working out today because I have too many meetings. By making these types of excuses to yourself, it makes you feel better momentarily. However, if this cycle keeps repeating itself, you will keep ending up with the same perceived weakness. A quote that I really like from the book Atomic Habits by James Clear is winners and losers both have the same goal. So, if you have the goal to get stronger, for example, but keep making the excuse to yourself that you're tired or have too much work, you'll never see the results of the goal you set. However, if you do tell yourself that you can make time, slowly you will start to see change. This sounds simple in theory. It sounds like something many of us have probably heard before: consistency. Last month, I applied for a scholarship to university. I worked for countless hours on my written application, and after all my hard work, I made it through to the next round. The next round was a video application, and I had one take to submit my response. After that round, I got cut. When I got the email saying I didn't make it through, I was obviously disappointed, but I knew I had control over my reaction to this setback, and instead, I used it as motivation to apply to more scholarships and take a look at my responses. If there's something that you view as a setback or an obstacle in your life, you have the decision whether you let that stop you from achieving your goals or use it as fuel and motivation to work harder or change your approach. Weakness can make you strong because it teaches you how to deal with hard things, and it teaches you to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. So, whether you're in grade 11, 12, or even a faculty member, I challenge you to use your time at Appleby to embrace weakness. When I first found out that I was going to be giving this speech, I was excited. However, when I sat down to write it, I felt like I couldn't get the right words onto the page. I thought to myself, why do people want to hear what I have to say? I struggled because at the beginning, the words weren't flowing to me naturally. Then, I realized this is the first time I've ever done something like this, standing in front of a crowd that's bigger than my 7th grade class, and have the complete freedom to talk about whatever message I wanted to share for 10 minutes. I'm not sharing the message of embrace weakness because I never let it get to me. I want to share this with you today because it's something I fear constantly. Just because I fear it doesn't mean I have to avoid it though. You are the only person that can control what you do in your life. And if you want to do something, but think to yourself, I wish I started this when I was younger, or I'll be happy when this happens, or even I should be doing this instead, whether it comes to school, work, friendships, relationships, it's honestly never too late. Just because you may be late to the game doesn't mean you can't play. Does it mean you might have to work a little bit harder? Yes, but if it's truly something you want to do, no one is stopping you from trying except for yourself. Now, at the beginning, I mentioned that you have control over 3 things: your reactions, your habits, and how you choose to spend your time. Habits can be life-changing, but they can also be preventing you from reaching your fullest potential, whether you're aware of it or not. Recently, I've become aware of the power habits can have and how they can help you overcome weakness and achieve the goals that you've set. An example of this is a vicious cycle I found myself in before: using my laptop right before I went to sleep. This was a habit I got into because of school. I always found myself waking up groggy in the morning and then exhausted by the time the evening rolled around and it was time to do homework, until I got a burst of energy later in the night to do it. I was tired of this constant cycle, so I took a step back to examine my patterns. By using my laptop before bed, I wasn't getting the best quality sleep I could be, so I'd wake up feeling groggy, which would affect me later in the day. What I decided to do was put my laptop away strictly an hour before I went to sleep so I had time to wind down. And by doing this, I woke up feeling more refreshed, less tired, and I didn't need to wait for that boost of energy to start doing my work. This is what I mean when I say habits you may not even realize you're doing or are so second nature can have such a huge impact on you and the quality of life that you're living. The last thing is how you choose to spend your time. Especially at Appleby, where there's very much a hustle culture atmosphere, it's easy to slip into stress. Now, this is something I think many of us can relate to, the stress of being a student. But just because you have work to do doesn't necessarily mean it has to be stressful. Yes, it has to get done, and yes, it takes some degree of managing your time effectively. But the longer you spend thinking about the task you have to do instead of completing it, you're only adding to the pressure of the work. Time is one of our most valuable things because it's limited. You have 24 hours in a day, and if you spend 4 hours of that time on your phone or procrastinating, you're left with a 20-hour day. This, in theory, makes your days and weeks 16.7% shorter. And I'm not saying to stop going on your phone. I'm just saying be mindful of where and how you spend your time because it can quickly become your biggest asset or your biggest barrier. Going back almost 8 years, I would have never imagined that I could have shared my story of having Crohn's disease with you. But 8 years ago, I also didn't know what was in store for me. 8 years ago, I thought that being diagnosed was something to be ashamed about. But 8 years later, I'm happy to say I'm the best I've ever been. Even though my diagnosis was a weakness I had to overcome, and there are still bumps along the way and good days and bad days with my health, I'm happy to say that it's made me stronger than 10-year-old me could have ever imagined. And I hope that if you're able to take one thing from my speech, it's just because you face barriers doesn't mean they have to stop you from living your life to the fullest. To end on a quote by a Canadian icon, Gord Downie, "There's no dress rehearsal. This is our life." Please rise and sing hymn number 12.